The honor means a lot. The banner means nothing. It's the honor of serving here and having done well enough to have people notice and give me a platform to continue on in trying to connect this community, I think is what's so important to me. If it had just been basketball, then I just probably would have been gone and out of the community. But the community is really a special community, as you know. Just so grateful to Florida State and the opportunities that I've had.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show highlighting the unexpected journeys of some of Tallahassee's most interesting people. Everybody has a story worth telling, and I'm grateful we get to share a few of them with you. I'm Dave Fiore, and in this episode I speak with Sue Semrau, the winningest women's basketball coach in Florida State history. Coach Sue will tell you the wins were never really the point, but they gave her the capital to keep doing what she was really passionate about: teach. She grew up in Seattle, the daughter of 2 school teachers, and arrived in Tallahassee in 1997 to take over a program that had gone 5-22 the year before. 24 years, 492 wins, 3 Elite Eights, and a National Coach of the Year award later, she retired in 2022, partly because the game had changed and partly because her mother needed her. Both were enough. Along the way, she turned down opportunities to leave, including a chance to go home to Washington, because Tallahassee had become something she wasn't willing to walk away from. Since retiring, she has helped found the First 12, a local initiative built around one simple idea: to get the people and organizations serving the city's most vulnerable neighbors into the same room and let the relationships do the work. We talk about coaching, community, and what it looks like to build something that outlasts the final score. We begin our conversation talking about growing up in Seattle.
Yeah, I didn't really know how beautiful it was, that's for sure. When you grow up there, it's all you know. But it really is a magnificent place. And had a childhood that was complemented by the fact that my parents were both school teachers. So I grew up with the education system. I grew up striking when the teachers were striking.
You were out there holding a sign.
Yeah, it's just, and so I understood life from the perspective of education and how to educate. I think it was really important. It isn't about telling people things. It's about teaching people how to read, write, and think, teaching people how to, in fact, when I went to college, that's what I thought. It wasn't, what do I want to be? It was, I know I'm going to take this opportunity to learn how to read, write, and think. And I think I learned that through my childhood in Seattle.
Okay. So even as a young person, thinking more liberal arts-ish toward college, right? Not learning a skill to be employable.
Yes.
But
100%.
Expanding yourself and learning to learn, right?
Absolutely. And knowing that and looking back, the emphasis on teaching, I was going to be a teacher. That's just what my parents were teachers, and it just was kind of a family thing. My sister's a teacher. My only sister's a teacher. My niece wants to be a teacher. So in a way, what it did lead me to teaching, but I went to college and studied communication.
Okay.
And really started to understand probably a lot of what you used to do, whereas we look at somebody in a position of power or an office or something, and when we see that on TV, we don't really think about it, but they're usually above where we are sitting. So it's this medium that tells you what is going on and what you should think and what you should believe. And so that kind of tilted everything on its head when I was in college and made me think a lot differently about what I was learning.
Right. And we'll, of course, get into all your coaching stuff later, but did you always consciously think about coaching as teaching in that kind of that same way
Oh,
that
yeah.
as you thought about it when you were younger?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No question. And it wasn't just teaching basketball skills. It was the opportunity to teach hope, the opportunity to teach discipline and to teach hard work, and just to teach community and what it is like to build a team. So,
Right. And probably knowing that your life experience as a young person with your core family is not what everybody else had experienced. So they're coming to it from a different perspective that you had a chance to speak into maybe in a different way.
well, I think we all have that, the opportunity to speak into each other's lives, but we don't all have the same perspective.
Right.
And so coaches teach differently, even, from one program to another.
Right. What kind of kid were you? I know obviously you were impacted by your family and your parents and you loved learning and that was part of who you were. But other than that, kind of what were you interested in and what did you enjoy doing?
Yeah. As I'm in retirement, I'm learning a lot more about why I did what I did as a kid.
Right.
I had a personality that I feel like, I was born with that was a connector. I wanted to connect the kids in the neighborhood. I wanted to connect the people in our schools. I don't think that was as much a skill as it was just a gift. And I think I was much more willing to take risks, than maybe I even am now. But obviously, you can't take the kind of risks that you may now because of your parents. You've got your parents that are saying, no, you're not going to take that risk.
Right.
So, but I did. I loved sports. I loved activity. Things didn't always have to be organized. But
right.
Yeah, just joy.
So you played all different sports?
I did.
So when did basketball become important to you? In your earlier age or middle school, high school, did you start leaning toward basketball or were you still kind of all over the place?
I was pretty much all over the place. I think my father was a music teacher, and so he taught both band and choral. And I watched him lead, and I watched him direct a group of very different instruments or voices to create this one really great piece of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And so sport was that for me, much to my father's chagrin. I tried the music piece, but didn't really stick. But with basketball, so I played basketball in college. That's the one I chose. And in high school, I was still a bit all over the place. Soccer, softball, all of this, and track. But picking it for college really, I think, honed in some more technical skills and the type of situation that I needed to be in order to really become somebody who was knowledgeable enough to coach.
Right. All right, let's shift a little bit and talk about you playing college basketball.
Okay.
So you played at the University of Puget Sound first?
Yes. So that was about an hour from my home in Seattle.
Okay. And were you a guard?
I was a guard.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I assumed.
I was a point
Unless
guard.
you played at a really small school.
Yeah.
So what was the best part of your game? Not everybody gets to play college basketball, so you must have been pretty good. So what was the best part of your game?
Well, I think, it really goes back, and I think a lot of coaches probably are like this, that your work ethic, is the best part. And so it's the hours that you spend out of practice that make you good at your skill, your task, your whatever it is that you have. And so I would shoot the ball, religiously. I would handle the ball religiously. And then I learned how to take my garage door and take the squares on the garage door and figure out how could I pass a pinpoint pass, just because it's so vital when you're a guard to be able to set other people up. So that was through your handles, that was through your passing. And then, but as a coach, I love defense. And I think that's just part of the work ethic. It's the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the unheralded part of the game, right? And the work and the grit and the, professional leagues recognize defensive players of the year and all defensive teams and everything. But it's not what gets people excited unless you're
Right.
blocking shots, maybe.
Oh, exactly.
But
You don't ever really hear the applause for keeping somebody in front of you.
that's right. I kept him out here. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
But so, and talk too about, I would think that being a guard, and you played point.
Yeah.
That you're kind of being a coach on the floor, right? You have to have
Sure.
sort of the quarterback. You have to have the understanding of everything that's happening, everybody's roles. You distribute the ball. So did you kind of have a knack for that as well in your thought process as you played?
Yeah, again, I think that was just something I was born with, is just and my dad inspired the idea of leading as a profession, and I just thought, dang, like he's good. Like he starts it on time, and it was just, and that's where it all came from.
Okay. All right. And you transferred to UC San Diego at some
did.
point? So why'd you do that?
Well, I'd like to say that it was for basketball's sake. It was not at all for basketball's sake. I had discovered sunshine when I had taken some trips to California with my family.
Yeah.
And I realized how much I enjoyed it. In fact, one year when I was in high school, I got the dreaded mono.
Mhm.
And I was exhausted, and it was like spring break. So we went down to California, and we just sitting by the pool, drinking orange juice. I came back, I felt great. Well, I thought, in my mind, it was the sun, right? So that was partially it. It was one of my college teammates was transferring down to UC San Diego, and my aunt lived in San Diego. And so I went down there and visited and just loved it. And it was a blast.
You didn't miss the gray skies?
See, at the time, I didn't know what else was there but the gray skies. And I got to live on the beach in Del Mar. I mean, it was just not a bad gig.
Right. So you finished college. Did you immediately want to be a coach? Was that your dream at that point?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I had graduated with a degree in communication. And when I went back up to Seattle, I realized that when I got a job, it was with a professional soccer team. It's called the Seattle Storm, which is now the basketball team. And I realized that I didn't really enjoy communicating through the written word, but at the time it was the best way to do it.
Right.
And so I'd be sitting behind a desk or, writing, and I was like, ugh. I liked what the guy down the hall did, and he ran the organization. He was the president of the organization. I was like, that. So I started talking with him, and he recommended I go back and get a degree in athletic administration. Went to Southern Cal, got my degree in athletic administration there. And while I was there, I started coaching.
Okay.
I coached a high school team in my second year there. And then once I had graduated, I started coaching at a small college called Occidental College.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't coach just basketball. I coached soccer, which I played. And later on, gave up soccer to be an administrator along with a basketball coach. It was Division III, so it was smaller. I got to wipe the floors. I got to set up the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. I loved it.
So what was it about coaching that kind of led you in that direction and kind of give up on the administration, CEO, run the company kind of, path to be a coach?
Yeah, it's a good question. I saw what those guys were doing, and I wanted to be more hands-on. And I think ultimately when I became a head coach, it was so necessary that I had those skills. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful that that's the path I took. And, I had a greeting card one time that I bought. I was maybe going to give it to someone. It ended up being on my wall for so long. And it was a little kid who was dirty, had a basketball, and it was just said like, a kid, a basketball, and, this is your future or something like that. And I was just like, I could do something with this. I could enjoy it. I didn't have to work. I never worked a day in my life, but I did.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. But yeah, that's awesome. To get that clarity is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Early on. All right. So after you left Occidental, you were an assistant coach. I have here, there may have been other stops, but Northern Illinois and Wisconsin.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what did you learn in those years? What were those experiences like, being part of a big school staff.
Yeah. I worked a camp while I was at Occidental in Indiana, and they had multiple sports. And at that time, I met the person that was running the basketball side of it, was named Jane Albright. And she was the coach at Northern Illinois at the time. And she said, come to DeKalb, Illinois with me afterwards, and I'll show you around. And it was just nothing about basketball. It was everything about, this is one of my players, Cindy Connor. And Cindy's from Chicago. And this is, and then here's another one of my players, E.C. Hill. And this is how I got to know E.C. And it was just the relational. Mm. I think doing the CEO admin stuff was more transactional. And this was more an opportunity to be transformational. Mm. And I think we talk about that, but that's the way I learned from the very beginning to be a basketball coach. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty fantastic. And then so I went to work for Jane a year after that at Northern Illinois University. And they asked me, when Jane took the job at Wisconsin, they asked me if I'd stay and be the head coach. And I don't think you ever want to follow a legend. And she was a legend there. Plus, I thought Wisconsin would give me a little bit more insight to what the next level was. So moved up to Madison, and she was the head coach there as well. And so I was there, I think, in the Midwest, a total of 6 years.
Okay.
I learned that...
So Big Ten basketball is no joke.
It's no joke.
Yeah.
And we were really good at it during those years. And it was really good at it by wins and losses. And also, I felt like we were being very transformational during that time. Not because it's us, but it's because of presence and because of caring about other people and who they are. I mean, you asked that question at the beginning.
Right.
And not just what they do or they can do, especially for you.
Right. And we'll be right back. I hope you're enjoying this episode of How I Got Here, which is recorded at Fiore Communications just down the hall from my office. If you want to start a podcast but aren't sure about what all's involved, our podcast launch package has you covered. We'll handle everything: concept, branding, first episode recording, editing and publishing. We'll even give you social templates to get your promotion started. Why wait any longer? Learn more at fiorecommunications.com/packages. And now back to the show. You're at a Big Ten program, and then in 1997, Florida State comes knocking and offers you the head coaching job, a program that I believe had gone 5-22 the year before. So what made you want to consider the job and then ultimately say yes to coming to Tallahassee?
Well, I had been offered the job at San Diego State the year before, the head job, and I was from, the West Coast kid,
Yeah.
And there was just something about it that I just couldn't pull the trigger. And they weren't bad. Florida State was bad. The head coach at the time was Chris Gobrecht, who I had worked multiple camps with. She was the head coach at University of Washington when I was a player in high school there, and also at UPS. And so I got to know Chris pretty well during those camps. And she was super successful. And she ended up saying, I'm going to go to Florida State. Why? From Seattle to Tallahassee. Yeah. And she just felt like it was a gold mine. She just said, and so and this is the truth, I can't even explain it, but she said to me in the process, when I got the call, she called me and she said, I'm leaving to go to Southern Cal, which is my alma mater, my husband's alma mater, my alma mater. And she said, I got on my knees and I asked God, I said, if not me here, then who? Mm. And she said, it was like a banner, like an airplane carrying a banner behind it. And it was your name. And I was like, oh no. Mm-mm. I mean, and the fact that she was leaving after 1 year, there was no way that Dave Hart was going to hire somebody that she recommended. Right. So she didn't go to Dave. She went to the associate AD at the time. And it was just intriguing to me that she said those words. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go through the process and I'm going to do the next thing in front of me. And this is what I recommend to my players who are going through job opportunities is go to the next step and the next and the next. Don't try to think all the way ahead. What is this going to be like? So they invited me to come down to Atlanta. When they invited me, I was at a camp in the Midwest where I had met Jane Albright. Mm-hmm. I was working that camp. And there were 3 players that were at that camp that were serving as counselors that were at Florida State playing basketball. Mm-hmm. So I left that camp to come to Atlanta and interview. Certainly wasn't going to tell them that.
Right.
We interviewed at airports at that time. Then I go back to that camp, and there's a girl who gets up and shares that she was a Gatorade Player of the Year in Kansas, and she got a scholarship to the University of Kansas, who was amazing at the time. And her mom had she had a surgery that cut off the blood to her brain, and so she was incapacitated mentally. Mm-hmm. So she had to move back to Tulsa. I guess she was Oklahoma State Player of the Year. Moved back to Tulsa and started playing there to take care of her mom. And she said, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do both. Mm-hmm. So I'm really just here hoping, that as the summer goes on, I find a place that I really can go that has an opportunity to be good. And here I am, I'm sitting there listening to her. And, as it goes, I ended up getting the job at Florida State, saying yes to the job at Florida State. And then that player came and started her first year, and she only had 1 year. There's so many different stories I could tell you. Just stop me. I mean, it's
no, I love it.
There's so many different things.
Yeah. All right. So did you know anything about, other than that FSU had been bad, did you know anything about the school or Tallahassee or what it would mean to live here? Or was it just figured out when you get here?
Yeah. Jane Albright was a North Carolina girl, so she knew the ACC. So I learned a little bit there. We had come down and played Florida State, so I'd seen Tully Jim. Was not impressed,
Love Tully.
And that's where we played my first year.
Yeah.
So I really didn't know much about it. I just knew that when I came down on my visit here and I met with Coach Bowden, that was it. He sat down with me and he said, "Listen, this is my journey, and you're where I was, and I'll help you on your journey." And I trusted that guy. Yeah. And he was nothing but golden for me the entire time that he was the coach at Florida State.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that a little later, but let's jump into it now.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship with Coach Bowden and what he meant to you.
I mean, I learned so much from him. Once again, not only the what to do as a coach, but the how to do it as a coach. He had this infamous preseason conditioning called mat drills. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't it work for basketball? I did mat drills. He had an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, a recruiting coordinator. Why wouldn't that work for basketball? And we talked hours about those things and why they would. And Mike Martin was an old basketball coach. So we'd get together and talk about these things and how can it work? And so for someone like that, who won so many different awards and everything else, he sat with me. He was in the top 4 of the country for 14 consecutive years. And he took time for me. Yeah. And boy, did I eat it up and take advantage of it. There was a time, I still have this note, that we had a bit of a down year. And he wrote it on a piece of notebook paper, a graph. And he just put, this is where I started, and whatever year it was. And then he drew a line up, then a line over, then a line down, then a line up, and it went on. And he drew an arrow and he said, "I think you're here." Mm. And it ended with a national championship. Mm. And it was just care.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. my school years were just before the dynasty years, so we were kind of mediocre during. So we would have been a different point in the graph.
Maybe before it even started.
Just before, yeah. But yeah, that's great. And to have access to both the coaching side, but the personal side of who these people were, who these men were, Mike Martin and Bobby Bowden. I mean, who gets that?
Who gets that? It was unreal. And there was a time, I don't know if you remember, but he had a player named Devon Darling.
Mm-hmm.
And he had sickle cell trait. And he was working out and immediately just...
Yeah, I remember.
He died. And years later, it was summer. It was the beginning of June. The freshmen were coming in, and I couldn't work with them yet, but they were playing pickup that day. And I had a kid who was 6'5", long, lanky. Everybody wanted her. She was at Florida State. Her name was Ronalda Pierce. And that night at 3 a.m. or that next morning, I got a phone call from her roommate, and she said, "Coach Sue, it's Ronalda. She was rushed to the hospital and she didn't make it." And I'm like, "She didn't make it to the hospital?" And she was like, "No, she died." And her death was a very rare form it was called Marfan's disease, which is a disease of the connective tissue in your veins.
Mm.
And so it was fast and undetected. It scared me a lot for the rest of my coaching years to get anyone with those long limbs.
Yeah.
But Coach Bowden was unbelievable through that time. He had gone through it. He knew. Yeah, just forever grateful for that.
Another aspect that you've talked about in those connections is also the impact on your faith and coaching boldly with your faith and being part of. I know Coach Bowden was, probably best known for that more than all his wins and accomplishments and everything.
Right.
So did that give you I don't know where you had come from that, but did it give you a freedom or boldness, or did that impact your thoughts at all on how faith interacts with coaching?
That's a great question. And I believe, I think it was St. Augustine that said this, that you can preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words.
Right.
And that's the way I wanted to live. I did not want my faith to have to be everyone else's faith. That it was my personal choice, and the word that comes to my mind is it governed the way I coached.
Right.
So if players came in and they said, "Oh gosh, I have this problem, that problem, blah, 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 blah," and I'd be like, "Well, I listen. I really only have one answer for you." "Okay, Coach Sue," and then they'd leave. And then, but later on they'd come in and they'd really just want to hear how I can't do it myself. So I can't tell you how to do it yourself. And this is all I know. And, take a look at it if you want.
Yeah.
And so and Coach Bowden was more bold in the fact that he had chapel the night before every football game. And, so it was a covering in a way. But again, I think it's so important as we are in a state institution that we honor those people who have faith in another, way, or they don't have a faith. That to me is what my faith means, is it's love. It's really just love people for who they are.
It's not conditional.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. All right, shift back to basketball here a little bit. So you inherit the program, didn't turn around overnight.
That's
right?
for sure. Yeah. We did win 5 conference games.
There you go. It was a step in the right direction.
That's right.
So, what were those early years like? Learning patience. You can't turn the ship around in a year or two. How did that fit into your expectations for yourself and the team? And how did you work through those early years we'll talk about, obviously, you're the winningest coach in history. Things got a lot better. But in those first years, what was that like?
Well, I had just gone through it with Jane at Wisconsin. They were horrible. And so I watched someone who is getting a bench at the Naismith Hall of Fame this summer. I watched her do it. Mm-hmm. And so I had a great blueprint. I had some players who were hungry. They might not have been as talented, but they were hungry. And that's what I needed going forward. I then, the freshman of Brooke Wyckoff was pretty phenomenal to have as well.
Yeah.
It was really important to me throughout my career, really. We did home visits during the month of September. And I hadn't done home visits with these guys. So I decided during July, when I could go out recruiting, when it was legal for me to go into their homes, I went into their homes and tried to establish those relationships first. And so I think it was just a trust that, yeah, this isn't going to happen overnight. But one of the things that Jane had taught me was, you go in your first meeting, you're like, okay, what do you want to do? And, you're thinking they're going to say, win a national championship and all that. And they're just like, have fun, have lots of water breaks. And, you're just like, okay, I really do get to set the course for how we do this and how long it will take and how hard it's going to be. So I really had that in mind already. I didn't even believe in our fourth year we would go to the tournament. So that was, and win a game. So that was really fun to do that. In fact, one of the key players on that team, or on those teams that I first got there, was Latavia Coleman. She was an all-conference player, little undersized post player from Macon, Georgia. This weekend, her nephew is coming down on a visit to Florida State to play football.
Wow.
He's like the number 4 safety in the country. And you're just like, okay, how cool is this?
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, it was hard, but the whole thing, it's the whole idea of you never have a job in your life if you just, you're really pouring into people.
Were the fans patient?
There weren't any fans. I mean, there still weren't enough fans when I left. I mean, it was just, that was one of the glass ceilings that I continued to bang my head against. And when I finally had that concussion that wouldn't go away, I retired. But, it was one of those things that.
Frustrating?
We didn't have the resources, but I didn't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that because you did have opportunities to go other places over the years, including Washington, right?
Yeah.
Which would have been obviously going home.
Yep.
So what kept you here?
It wasn't a job. And, my former assistant coach who coaches at UCLA, Corey Close, just won the national championship.
Yeah.
And although that was what we strive for, it wasn't what the job was all about. And I think the fans at that point were much more patient with that because they really wanted to see the growth of young women. One of our missions was to prepare strong, beautiful, talented women to go on and do great things. But really, the mission of our program was to build a top 10 program that positively impacts lives. Not a national championship, but a top 10, because we didn't have the resources. We go to recruit to the West and we're recruiting in the ocean. We recruit to the East. It's, it's just,
right.
And, football's different. This is not a mecca for girls basketball. It's getting better, and so going to Washington, I felt like it wouldn't be loyal. It wasn't loyal to my family, and that's kind of one thing I've learned now too. But I don't know. It just didn't feel
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're glad you stayed. Now we're going to talk about what you accomplished here. You spent 24 seasons at Florida State, finishing as the program's all-time wins leader with 492 victories. You guided the Seminoles to 16 NCAA tournament appearances, including 3 Elite Eights in 2010, 15, and 17. You were named the Associated Press, WCA, and ESPNW National Coach of the Year in 2015, which also included one of the 4 times you earned ACC Coach of the Year honors. So
it's crazy.
Yeah. So first, congratulations on all that. That's pretty awesome. So when you think about where you started and your determination to stay and taking this program to heights it had never been to and has not returned to yet, what does that mean to you? What do you think about when you reflect on on your career here?
It's all about the beginning. I mean, it was the same. It's been the same. Just the people changed, the opportunities changed, the success, I think, in wins and losses breeds more success in recruiting. But we didn't have to work any less hard. It was just a gift to be a part of this community. It was a gift to be a part of Florida State. The coaches here are just salt of the earth people. Still are. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, Brooke, Luke Laux, Link Jarrett, Jen Hyde. I mean, all these people are alumni, played here. I mean, Luke was a player when I was coaching, and every time he and Davidus Dolkis would come down the hall, Coach Sue, and it was the day I saw him when he was first that coach, Coach Sue, and it just, it's family, and now, and the reason I stay in Tallahassee now is part of that, but it's that my niece and nephew, who were born in 96 and 99. So when I got here and just right after, they know that orange and blue should not be part of your logo.
They're not the same orange and blue, but I have had that feedback before.
I'm just saying, they would be like, why are you doing this podcast? But my nephew has just graduated law school at Florida State, and my niece is getting her PhD here. And so it's just such a big part of our family. And I have the time now to go back and visit my parents much more often, and my sister who's out in Seattle. So it's been a really cool, fun ride.
Yeah. It's funny because hearing you talk, it's easy to say that it's not about the winning and it's just about the player development and the relationships. But I really get the sense, I mean, you did win. You did reach very high levels.
I wouldn't have been able to stay.
Right. That's kind of the administration wants some wins in there.
That's right.
But I just truly get the sense that wasn't the thing for you. It really wasn't.
Well, if I hadn't been able to accomplish that, then because
it's capital to do other things.
Yes, right? Absolutely. And if I couldn't have done it that way, then I wouldn't have done it. And it happened that way. And so that was what was just so exciting about it. The year that got shut down with COVID, we're sitting in the film room and, we're looking at, who could be our next opponent in the NCAA tournament. And then the guys are on the court.
I'm still mad about the guys.
I mean, well, we were better than the guys that year. We were going to go to the Final Four that year.
Really?
Yes. And we were just and it was like my seniors and everything else. You're just like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. And
well, I guess maybe the difference is, to be fair, you had been there before. It had been a while since the guys. And this was like this was our opportunity.
Deal. Yeah, right.
But it's still just as frustrating for you when you've got the team.
Yes,
and you couldn't do it.
Yeah, you thought you were going to take that next step. It was wild. I mean, it was a wild thing for us and everybody else.
Yeah, and we'll be right back. How I Got Here is sponsored by Barano Heating and Air Conditioning in Tallahassee. I've been friends with Patrick Barano since we met in a chamber leads group about 15 years ago. I'll admit that I pursued him pretty hard to be his marketing firm and eventually won him over. And the reason I wanted to work with him is that I was already a customer and I knew what kind of company he and his father before him had built. He cares about his customers, he cares about his team, and he cares about this community. I've experienced Barano Heating and Air when they installed a complete system replacement a few years ago, and I enjoy peace of mind and same-day service with my Total Comfort Service Agreement. I've also been behind the scenes at their office and seen firsthand the true character of this company. And that's why we're so proud to represent them. To learn more or to schedule an appointment online anytime, visit baranoac.com. They really always will be there for you. And now back to the show. So you did retire in 2022, right? Mm-hmm. And you just felt like it was time that you had run this course and that was it?
Well, after that year, my mom had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And at the time during COVID, you had to quarantine 5 days on one end. And then you take a 5-hour flight, you quarantine for 5 days on that. I couldn't have done both. And so Florida State administration was just so generous to let me take that sabbatical, and Brooke stepped in and did a fabulous job. And quite frankly, I didn't want to come back. I felt like it had really changed. The relationships were different because you couldn't have this face-to-face. Yeah. And so I stayed one more year, but I knew the next year I couldn't do it again. And that's when Michael Alford had stepped in, and I told him in January, like, this is it for me. And so.
All right. Well, since retiring from being a basketball coach, you've helped found here locally the First 12, which is an initiative bringing community leaders together around those who are most vulnerable, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I was in Seattle during COVID, my parents live across the street from an urban lake. And so I would walk that urban lake. And during that time, there were so many tents that were parked out there. And Seattle was one of the hot spots for a lot of tent cities. And I tell you, Dave, I would walk around that lake and I would see people, and I did not know what to do, how to help those folks. I mean, it was cold, it was rainy, it was dark, and I didn't know what to do. And I'm a female, and I was...
Can't just walk up to a tent with a guy in there.
Right.
Yeah, for your own safety.
Right. And yet I didn't want that to drive me. So it really stuck with me. And when I got back here, I noticed a lot more of our unhoused neighbors right around here. And so, you kind of start to think, well, what do I hate? Well, I hate this. I also hated that there wasn't very much girls basketball for middle schoolers. And so we started a 3-on-3 league. So things you hate, you got to do something about, right?
Right.
So I went to the mayor, and John told me that the best place I could go was to the Big Bend Continuum of Care, because they oversaw 8 different agencies that help those that are the most vulnerable. And Jonna Coleman's the CEO of that. So I took her to lunch. And then she told me about someone else. I took them to lunch, and on and on. Well, pretty soon I had talked with about 15 different people, and I realized how much I didn't know. There was absolutely no need for any more nonprofits. There are plenty here, but I didn't know how they worked together. I couldn't even wrap my head around who did what. And I had some time, and I was trying to figure this out. So it was back when it was Jerry's Midtown, and they had a big round table in a back room. And they said, you can use this anytime you want to, because I'd be bringing people there for lunch. So I wrote an email, sent it out to the 15 people I talked to, and said, the first 12 of you to say yes, I'll buy lunch for everybody. And we started doing that once a month. We met more people, but still it was the first 12 to say, yes, I'll buy lunch. And then it got to the point where I really wanted to be more inclusive of people in the big gatherings. And so we just kept the name First 12.
That's a great name.
It's just, and we have a little executive team, and we talk about what we want to do. And really the concept for me is building connections. And so building connections that positively impact lives.
Okay.
And so...
Is it coordination of services, or just a better understanding between agencies and the government and everybody
It's
involved?
not just understanding.
Okay.
It's relationships.
Okay.
And that's, to me, the thing that they don't have enough time to forge on their own, because they are overworked and underpaid. And so getting them together in a space where they could be honored and then create those connections has been really fun to watch. And I didn't want to be a driver for anything, but really what I want to do is create connections. And I also want to then create a connection with our community where we can educate each other on what it means to have unhoused in our community or people living just above the poverty line. And what can we do? Because I didn't know. And that's really what I want to do through this with businesses being a part of it, with nonprofits being a part of it, with faith-based community being a part of it, that all of those people would work together to solve an issue. And you can't solve it, but to really build relationships on that. So, and we've just announced to the group that we're going to undergo, we haven't publicly announced this yet, but something called Knock Knock Give a Sock. And it's a program that's been developed by someone up in DC who has her own organization, because socks are something that people who are unhoused would rather have than food.
Right.
And it's so easy. But then their mission is to make something that's transactional into something that's interactional. And it really just fits with our whole mission and who I've been, and building a team around those neighbors of ours, and how do we surround them with the services they need.
So you've seen progress?
Yeah. And I've been invited to be on the board for the Carney Center. So I've seen a lot of progress there as well, because that really is the only emergency shelter we have.
It's kind of the hub of all that.
Yeah. But I've learned a lot from the other organizations, and, we're trying to educate older folks here on Slack. I don't know if you're familiar with that platform, but how do we communicate with each other and have different channels and all of that. So yeah, it's been really cool, and it's been cool to see the community really join in around it. But again, I don't have a huge agenda.
Yeah. Well, sounds like a pretty important agenda.
Well,
but so for somebody who's listening and is interested in learning more about it, how can they do that?
That's a great question. I would say email me, and I still have my FSU email address, ssemrau@fsu.edu.
Okay.
And we were developing a landing page and some more information about it, but we've just been pretty measured. We want it to grow organically.
Yeah.
You mentioned Charlie, and I'm on the board with his Champions Ranch that is going to be phenomenal for
really
our community.
Coming together.
Yes. I'm so excited about that and what that will mean to Tallahassee as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, one other question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, 2 final questions. But your banner now hangs at the Tucker Center. It was raised last year.
I can't remember.
Not even a year ago,
yeah.
Right? So, a banner at the home of, both all basketball activities and tons of other stuff. So what does that mean to you? I know you're going to say it's not about you, but, that's not a lot of, it is an extreme honor as one who has given so many years of their professional life to Florida State University to be honored in that way and have a banner at the Tucker Center. What does that mean to you to have that there?
The honor means a lot. The banner means nothing. It's the honor of serving here and having done well enough to have people notice and give me a platform to continue on in trying to connect this community, I think is what's so important to me. If it had just been basketball, then I just probably would have been gone and out of the community. But the community is really a special community, as you know, and what you're doing here. I mean, it's amazing. And so, just so grateful to Florida State and the opportunity that I've had.
Yeah. All right, Coach Sue, looking back, what is the one thing or person that you would say changed the trajectory of your life to this point?
No, I think it was the year that I went to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp in California as a coach at Occidental College, and really met people there who had accomplished things I wanted to accomplish. So Chris Gobrecht, for example, she was legendary at University of Washington. One of my friends named Debbie Halliday, who was a national champion in basketball and softball at UCLA. And seeing people that shared my faith and had accomplished these worldly things, but used it knew how to be careful enough to not allow it to be who they were.
Mm.
And that changed the trajectory for me because I never wanted it to be about me anymore. You know, you're a kid and you think you're going to, I thought I was going to dunk. I was 5'5", you know, and, you know, George Raveling, if it is to be, it's up to me, blah, blah, blah. But that really changed because it wasn't all on me. So I think that was probably a huge turning point, and the risks that I was willing to take as a result of wasn't doing it alone.
Right. Final question. Podcast is called How I Got Here. We've talked about how you got to this point in your life. Where do you think here might be for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
How I got here is an easier question. I'm going through all of the processes that I've just gone through in the last 4 years in my mind since retirement. And ultimately, what I've learned is slowing down and being present and looking at things that are very important and not being distracted by things that aren't. Tough in a world like today.
Yeah.
So wherever that takes me, people say, "What are you doing now?" And I say, "Well, I know I'm going to have a cup of coffee." And then I don't really schedule except by the hour, which, you know, you know that a little bit about me.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of prodding to get me to that point where I can commit. So I hope that I am a better aunt, a better sister, a better daughter. I hope that I'm a better friend, and I hope that I'm a better connector and member of a community than I've ever been before. That's all I know.
Thanks for listening to the show. To find more great episodes or suggest a guest, visit tallypodcast.com. You can also follow or subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and other major podcast platforms. While you're there, please leave us a rating and a review. Thank you for being part of the How I Got Here community.